church changed its mind and welcomed the LGBTQ community into all aspects of ministry of the Presbyterian Church. Those were pretty tough years, for the liberals. And I didn't want to have to fight that stuff anymore. So a friend of mine said, well, why don't you go to the cathedral? So I came over here, and it was the first Sunday in Lent, and there was a book study forming, and David Tremaine was leading that, and I joined the book study. And then they were studying during church on Sundays, but there was also going to be an in-house group that would meet, I think on Monday nights, and I joined that. We made a whole bunch of friends, so I just kept coming. And over the years, I got involved in Ashes to Go, and the Pride Parade, in the Formation Committee, and then I was asked to be a student minister, and enjoyed that experience very much. That's a good experience, good training. So the cathedral's been good to me, and I'm happy to be considered for this. I like the spirit of this place, and I especially like the people. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
There, we can see him now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angel Ibarra. I have been coming to the cathedral for almost 3 years now, and I live here at Bankers Hill, which is what initially brought me to the cathedral. And I just want to say, before I go any further, what a pleasure and an honor it is to be running against such great candidates. So I know you all running with. I know, so you all have a hard decision to make. So, but I'm sure whoever you choose up here will be great. So so I'm a little intimidated to be standing next to such great pillars of our community. So. But yeah, so I came to the cathedral about 3 years ago, and the reason why I stayed was really just because I love the outward-facing programs that the cathedral has to really share with the community what our faith means to us as a cathedral community, as a parish community. Through my work, I work with parishes all across the diocese in my work with Episcopal Community Services, and so I think I'm in a unique position to really be able to leverage everything that the cathedral has to offer to really be a beacon of hope for our San Diego community and also for our diocesan community to kind of share some of the challenges and unique ways that we face those challenges here as a parish community. And so that's what makes me really excited to be running for chapter this year. And I think we'll have a few more questions, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. I used to be a second grade teacher, so I can keep talking, but I'll look at myself here.
Good morning. I'm Phyllis Lindell, and I am here today alight with God's love and grounded in gratitude for the blessing of St. Paul's and the fact that I was brought here 3 years ago. I'm running for chapter because I'm trying to do a better job of heeding God's signs to me. And what I'm hearing in my ear about chapter candidacy is, hey, you can help. I have a lifetime of communication experience. I am a retired broadcast and print journalist. I am a writer-producer of medical education and continuing education videos and collateral material. I have decades of public work in education, healthcare, and arts nonprofits, raising awareness, creating, publicizing, facilitating events. I am a grandchild of missionaries on both sides. My grandparents and my father was raised in Brazil in that mission field. My mother was raised in Indian Territory in Oklahoma. I have served on executive boards in churches in Texas and here in San Diego. I served in church choirs since my teens, performing at Southern Baptist conventions across the United States. At St. Paul's, I volunteered right after I got here to the, sort of the Good News Festival when Bishop Curry was here and heeded his call to evangelism. I was on the first group that formed the evangelism committee here at St. Paul's. I helped write the evangelism strategic plan this summer. I completed my evangelism, certified evangelist training and my certified Eucharistic minister training this summer. So I have done both of those two things and will soon do a 4-course seminar on embracing evangelism for our congregations. I serve on St. Paul's Home Services Board, governing St. Paul's Manor Villa Skilled Nursing and PACE. And this will be my 3rd year volunteering in Ashes to Go, where I do Ashes and Blessings in Spanish, because I happen to speak it.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Alan Lechler, and I'm running for re-election to chapter. I have served the last year on chapter, very, very gracefully, or gracefully. I currently serve as the chapter representative, or a chapter representative to the Evangelism Committee, as well as to Peace and Social Justice. For those of you who attended the 10:30 service, you probably see me bubble through some lecture reading, as well as ushering on the third Sundays with John. I'm running for re-election because I want to take the experiences that I've had over the last year and continue to grow and continue to be God's vessel, or one of God's vessels here at St. Paul's, helping the cathedral meet its financial responsibilities as well as meeting the needs of the community, which something I've learned over the last year as a chapter member is a difficult process. And having people on chapter that have that business sense, I do have my Master's of Business Administration, having that business sense helps really move the church forward as a nonprofit organization and as a way for God to reach out to his people here in San Diego. So really, I'm just grateful to be here and grateful to be nominated to run again, and I'm looking forward to whatever the next few years bring here at St. Paul's. Thank you.
Good morning. For those of you who I have not had a chance to meet yet, I'm Bob Reed. On many Sunday mornings, you can find me greeting you and handing you a bulletin at the doors of the cathedral as an usher. On the 4th Sundays, I serve as the head usher and have for the last 45 years. I also help as part of other usher teams on the 1st and 5th Sundays in particular. This Sunday happens to be the 1st Sunday, so you know what I'll be doing after we finish here. On Sundays when I'm not ushering, I'm usually serving at the altar as either an acolyte or a chalice bearer or both. In addition, I have served as a lector and intercessor for just a lot of years and enjoyed it very much. On Monday mornings, I also serve as a money counter. The money counters tally the cash that are offered to the cathedral each week. Our job is to ensure that you receive credit for all of your generous gifts. My adult involvement with the cathedral began when my wife Sharon and I came to St. Paul's in the late 1970s. I was a young engineer and she was a registered nurse. We were soon recruited, as so often happens, to take on the parish junior high church school class. We did that for several years. That was a high energy project. I then went on to become the chair of the Christian Education Committee. That managed the church school at the time. Our involvement with the parish grew from there, so that was just the beginning. My objective here this morning is to ensure that I continue contributing to the parish life by offering myself as candidate to the chapter. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jill Sanford, and thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself as a chapter candidate. I was baptized at this cathedral in 2005 by Reverend Canon B.T. on the same Sunday as Drew Brees. As you know, he became a saint first. I served on chapter after being confirmed in 2006. I also served on the Diocesan Committee, Holiness in Relationships, and the Blessing of Same-Sex Relationships. It was while serving on this committee that I learned to trust the Holy Spirit, because after almost a year of contentious meetings, with the bishop's agreement, we reached the consensus that priests could have the discretion of blessing same-sex couples. Sandy, my wife, and I worked with Nancy Tarbell as she initiated Women Together. I've co-chaired several parish discernment committees and am trained in listening arts. Currently, I'm taking communion at people unable to come in person. I am also a student minister and have worked with several care receivers from whom I have learned a great deal about my faith and about listening carefully. I'm also a long-standing member of Peace and Justice. I regularly assist Carolyn Leaf with the December Fair Trade Expo. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. Pleasure to We'll segue for a few moments. We talk about chapter, but there's a lot for us to learn about what chapter does. And I've invited Penny to please come up and give us a little spiel about the chapter and its responsibilities.
We do have a seventh candidate for chapter, Kimberly Fernandez, who is one of the many people who's fallen sick, so Darren's going to read something from her in a minute. Chapter, if you've been a member of an Episcopal church that wasn't a cathedral, you might think of us as the vestry. Chapter/vestry covers both secular and religious roles. They have both fiduciary responsibilities as the board of directors of a California corporation, and also spiritual responsibilities as the leaders of our parish, our community. The most important thing from my point of view, the responsibility that chapter has, is to make sure that I have the resources to do worship for you. So if there's nothing else, chapter provides the resources to acquire the bread and the wine. So that's important. Feeding people, right? That's the most basic thing. But in fact, with an organization, we're small in terms of general non-profits, but we are large as a church, especially as an Episcopal church, and there's a lot of business to do, a lot of decisions to be made. And chapter oversees much of that business. We have great committees, we have wonderful staff, 7 of whom are on the sick list, by the way, today. Please pray for our staff. And so chapter doesn't have to do too much of the nitty-gritty, but it's really important that we have a group of attentive and devoted people who really love the cathedral and who oversee everything that goes on. So they get about 12 reports every month to read from various ministry groups and staff, and they get to see the finances, of course, all the time, every month. We expect chapter members to serve on committees, to be liaisons. I think I heard Alan talked about being liaison to evangelism and peace and social justice. Everyone takes one of those or several of those roles so that chapter can be informed about things that are going on. It's a priority for me that chapter be well informed. Even if they don't have time to read all the reports, at least they get them and can have a really transparent sense of what's going on. I trust chapter as a group of advisors and wise people, and it's a healthy community. I know that many people have experienced toxic environments in vestries and boards of directors. I have not experienced that in the churches I've served, and we disagree, but we do it in a loving and Christian way. And you've got a really tough choice this year because we've got 7 really, really strong candidates, and that says a lot about the health of this parish, that people are willing to step forward into leadership and to risk being elected or not being elected. It's hard to do that, to put yourself out there, knowing not everyone can be elected.
Penny, how many seats are we electing?
We are electing 4 full three-year terms and one year incomplete term. Thank you. So the 5 in all will be elected, and I think I'm not going to speak to what we decided at chapter about how we decide who the 5th person is, but Darian may remember. But the election is in person this year. You have to be at the meeting. That's a canonical requirement. It was relaxed during COVID, but that has now been rescinded, and you need to come on the 28th, have lunch, and participate. And similarly, we'll be electing 4 delegates for Diocesan Convention and 2 alternates. And we do currently have 6 candidates, so just enough people there. And if you didn't get it, there are packets in the back with photographs and statements from each of those 6 candidates. Paul Young's holding them up right now. So be sure to pick one up on your way out. So I hope that helps you get a slight sense of what chapter is and how we go about it.
Thank you, Penny. I'll add to what Penny mentioned about how we determine who gets the different terms. So we have 4 candidates that will be elected to a 3-year term. When we count the votes, the 5th person with the highest vote will be chosen to serve for the 1 year. The 5th person is the highest number of votes serves the 1-year term. So the first 4 people with the highest votes will serve the 3-year terms. We have a couple of questions that we'd like to pose to each of the candidates. They have received the questions before. I'm going to ask John, would you read one of the questions that we have?
Okay. What area of the parish
Hang on, it's my phone.
What areas of parish life do you feel most energized about and are interested in leading?
I'll begin the answer my end. The area of parish life to which I feel drawn is that of community outreach. I believe that our Stephen ministry and our Eucharistic visitor ministries could be expanded beyond our own congregation. It would help to further strengthen our vision of becoming a cathedral for the city. My own participation in both of these ministries has expanded my faith and enriched my life by following Christ to serve others. So many people in our community are in need of someone to walk with them as they face challenges and crises, such as illness, the death of a loved one, or growing older. If elected, I would love to be engaged in helping to expand these ministries beyond our cathedral walls. Thank you.
Okay. I have been privileged to serve as a member of several vestries and chapters.
Closer, microphone closer, please.
Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. My purpose now is to continue this kind of participation in parish life. Specifically, my previous involvements include a number of things. I served as clerk of the chapter. I did that for 13 years. That kind of thing kind of suits me. If it was something like that, I would be very happy to take that on. I served. Thank you again. I served as part of the cathedral's staff compensation committee for a while, which was enlightening. Served as the dean's warden. I installed and supported the first computers at the parish, 3 of them at the time. I installed the network that interconnected them and connected it to the internet. So that was some blazing technology at that point in time. Goes back a ways. I served 2 times on separate chapter committees responsible for revising parish bylaws. We're going to be doing that again this year at the parish meeting in a week or so. That was also interesting. The first committee addressed issues like gender equality, the membership requirement for membership in the cathedral, and also for the inclusion of youth in our leadership. I served as part of a team that transitioned the parish bookkeeping system also, and that was very much needed at the time. The one that we had was manual. It was extremely labor intensive. We had 3 full-time staff just supporting that. We had more staff supporting the bookkeeping effort than paid clergy at the time. So it was something that's out of line there. It was quirky. It's a good thing when you're talking about a financial system. And the reports that we got were 10 pages long and virtually not understood. We replaced that with one that was computerized. It was efficient and transparent. So that was a big step in the right direction at the time. So what I'm trying to say is that I look forward to continuing to contribute to parish life here in new and exciting ways. So that's it. Thank you.
I'd like to start by talking a little bit about how my faith has changed over the past year and how my relationship with God has grown due to my involvement with different things at St. Paul's. Really and truly, the thing that I feel most called towards is evangelism through service. I really have grown in my relationship with God through the service that I have been able to give to St. Paul's over the past year. Prior to serving on chapter, I was very little involved with what was going on in the operations of the church. And this year, I've been able to join different committees as well as become an usher and a lector-reader. And really, it's through that service that my relationship with God has grown, and I feel much more connected to Him and His callings for me as I move forward. And that service is how we will bring more people over to God and to His will. And that's why I really feel called towards the evangelism committee that we have here and towards evangelism through service, not through going out and beating people down with the Bible and telling them if you don't repent, you're going to go to hell, because that doesn't work. I'll just tell you straight out, it turns more people away from God than brings into them. But by going out and showing people that as a cathedral, we're here to support you. We love you and we accept you as who you are. And working and serving the underserved communities of San Diego is really where I feel right now called to be a leader at St. Paul's and to continue to serve God in that way. Thank you.
Alan, I did not plan this together, but I have spent so many years dealing with the public, and what I have seen in the last 3 years are wondrous happenings in this cathedral, where we open our arms and we bring in people who don't know us, or go out in the streets like in Ashes to Go, and they see our St. Paul Cathedral insignia, and the sign in front of us says, Ashes and Prayers, in 2 languages. That says more. We're out there, we're coming to you. And we do it over and over again when we bless the animals, when we do Mardi Gras. When I tell my friends about what happens here on Mardi Gras, their eyes get big. They go, what? In a church? A Zydeco band? The clergy dancing down the aisles? And those are the things where we open our hearts and our minds, we walk the walk as God's people. And I want to participate in those events, and I want to help continue to get the word out. We're doing it through evangelism right now.
Well, good question. Yeah, so I think for me, it's definitely what I want to be a part of and kind of leading, putting in the direction I think we should go in is our congregational life and our family life. So helping ministries and volunteers really develop those opportunities to be out in the community, be outward facing in the community. So we have a few different programs already that we have here. The one that I was thinking of that always comes to mind first is the Pride Light of the Cathedral. And so I think that's just a great opportunity for us to really be the cathedral of the city, the people's cathedral, like Jill was saying. And I think that's such a great mandate, and that's something I definitely want to push forward. And just working with different nonprofits, different organizations to really show the world, the city, what we believe in and who we are as a parish community. And so being able to push in the right direction for that is something that really energizes me. I've been involved in pastoral ministry for most of my career, actually, from being working in Philadelphia to Oceanside, and now here in San Diego. So so I've seen a lot of different ways that parishes have been able to do that, retaining families and building up youth ministries and young adult ministries is something that's also really important, and I know that's something that's really been focused for the diocese. And so finding ways that we can plug in what we're already doing and learning from other parishes and other groups of what they're doing to really retain some of the talent that we have here is something that really energizes me, and I think that we as a parish community really need to focus on. And so I'm excited to be able to work towards that here at St. Paul's.
I feel led to support community outreach, and the two things that I've enjoyed the most are probably Ashes to Go, and we often went to the courthouse, and people in that context really appreciated our offering them ashes and praying with them. The other one was the Pride Parade. I didn't do that until I was here a couple of years, and both times I marched in it, we had the big banner that says St. Paul's Cathedral. And when we come into view, people cheer, and it makes you feel so proud of this place, that we're affirming them and, endorsing them. And it's just wonderful. I mean, the applause picks up when we come into view, and it makes me feel proud of this place. And glad that we're out there in the community and visible. Other churches do this, but we seem to really get a real hurrah from the crowd. And it makes me feel proud of this place.
Thanks to all of you. As we mentioned before, one of the candidates is Kimberly Fernandez. So I'm going to read her statement. She was kind enough to provide. She's homesick this week, sadly enough. And Kimberly has been a member of St. Paul's since probably around 2010. And she currently, she has served now 3 years on chapter, and she's currently the People's Warden. So her answer to this question was, I plan to continue in my role as chair of Women Together. When my term ends, I still hope to be on the steering committee. Other committees that interest me are stewardship and evangelism. I'm also very enthusiastic about the music campaign. I trust that having a state-of-the-art facility will help St. Paul's fulfill our mission of spreading the gospel. Now we have a second question for our candidates. Stacy, would you please?
Sure, thank you, Darianne. The second question is, briefly share a personal experience at St. Paul's that exemplifies what our community means to you.
Some of you know I had a really sweet girlfriend named Janine Greenwell, and she had pancreatic cancer and died of it. And we were together for 4 years and 2 days. And 27 months of that time, Janine was dealing with cancer. And she lasted far longer than most people do. Typically that's a cancer that, takes you down in 3 to 6 months. Alice Trebek lasted about 8 months. But Janine, I think maybe because she was a nurse and really motivated, lasted 27 months. And the day that she died, the next day, I had a Stephen Minister training session. And everybody was so kind to me. So, like Jill was in that committee, so I'll always be grateful. And there were other people in the congregation who knew about this as well and extended their kindness to me. So this place has always been pretty special to me because of that.
I think when I saw this question, the first thought that came to mind was my first experience here at St. Paul's. So believe it or not, I can still remember a couple of years ago. And it's something that I actually bring up. I often am asked to be a guest preacher at different Episcopal parishes around the diocese. So in Christ Church in Coronado or St. Mark's in City Heights or even up in Del Mar at St. Peter's. And the experience that I always talk about is, that invitation for communion when we say, no matter who you are or where you're from, it's Christ who invites you to the table. And I always give Penny a shout out. She says it a lot better than I do. But that's something that for me really, the first time I heard it, really moved me. And ever since then, I've been really able to see that the cathedral and the parish are really there for the people who come and meet them where they're at. And I think that's something really special that we have here. And I think, hearing from different community members around San Diego, another part of my role is interacting with elected officials and policymakers. And whenever I bring up Episcopal Community Services, they always mention St. Paul's as the cathedral. And it always comes up in a really positive way, saying how much we do for the community and how grateful they are for our service. And so I think that's the really special part of this is, we meet people where they're at and we attract them with the beautiful liturgies, with the beautiful campus that we have, but also with a really sound theology, I think, that really welcomes all. And that's been really transformational in my life, and I know probably everyone up here can say the same thing. So just those first memories of hearing from Penny who the cathedral is and who we are as a parish, and seeing that really play out over the past 3 years has been really instrumental for me, so thank you.
This is a small thing and a big thing at the same time. This year, when we did Ashes to Go, there were a lot of other pet blessings. There were a lot of other churches who were doing that across the city, and we were out with the evangelism committee hanging door signs, and sometimes we had competing door signs. And I thought, who's going to come? And then I came to that event, and a couple walked in. Well, first somebody brought in a rooster. And I thought, how incredible, extraordinary, who then crowed every time we said hallelujah. And then a couple had an ancient cat on a furry white pillow that they brought in that was in his last days. And they brought that cat in for what I think is last rites. But they wanted that cat blessed by our clergy. I mean, it brought tears to your eyes watching it. And those little things happen in this place all the time. Whether it's a cat or a human, there is love here.
So from my experience, I need to go back a little bit in time, back to when I was 20 years old, 3 or 4 years ago. And when I was 20 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a Southern Baptist preacher. When I turned 21, I came to terms with my sexuality, and that dream went right out the window. And in actuality, I felt so abandoned by the church that I walked away from the church for about 20 years. And when God blessed me with my daughter, my husband wanted to get her baptized. He was raised Roman Catholic, and it was very important to him. And of course, the Catholic Church would not baptize a child with 2 gay dads. So he found St. Paul's Cathedral and convinced me to come to her baptism, even though I was kind of against it. And I came and really felt the warm and welcoming love of St. Paul's that Sunday and continued to come. And then I decided to learn a little bit more about what becoming an Episcopalian was. So I took the course with Reverend Jeff Martin Hall on becoming an Episcopalian around Easter. And I remember when Bishop Kate was here filling in as the bishop for San Diego, the Saturday evening when I was confirmed in the church, we met in the chapel. And I told her a little bit about the story that I just shared, and she looked at me and she said, "Welcome home." Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is what has made me feel that this is where I deserve, where I need to be. This is the church that God has called me to be, and it's the love and compassion of everyone at St. Paul's that keeps me coming Sunday after Sunday.
My oldest son, Tom, and his wife were with me at the 5 p.m. service on Christmas Eve. Thank you. So, when I read this question and thought about it for a minute, an anecdote came to my mind. It's about the number of generations of my family that have participated in our parish community. In the early 1950s, my family was a Navy family. Like so many others, my dad was stationed for 2 years in San Diego. My mom was a lifelong Episcopalian. At that time, St. Paul's was the oldest and the most energetic Episcopal parish in the city, and it was located near where we lived. So it was an obvious place to find our first spiritual home. At age 6, I became a new church school student in a classroom under what's now the Great Hall, right over here. So that was 2 generations of Reeds. My grandparents followed us to San Diego and to St. Paul's from Nebraska. That was a good decision. They were active at the parish until they passed away in the 1960s. So that's 3 generations. After leaving San Diego, I grew up in a number of places all over the country. But when I graduated from college as a new engineer, my job at that time was with the Navy's R&D facility over in Oklahoma. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, back in business. It was natural for me to gravitate with my history to St. Paul's as my new spiritual home again. In due course, I married, had 2 sons, Tom and Jim. So that's 4 generations. My sons grew up at St. Paul's, and they were active. They were acolytes, choristers, and lay readers. In time, they grew up, went to college, and moved away from home. It's kind of a natural progression. Subsequently, both my sons married, and Jim, who's my youngest son, had a son of his own, my grandson. His name is Jackson. Jackson was baptized by Dean Penny a few years back as the pandemic was beginning to recede. Initially, that was done virtually. So that is 5 generations of Reeds. I really hadn't thought of it quite in that way until I began thinking about this anecdote. That's very remarkable. It's a testament to the community here at St. Paul's.
I feel truly connected to St. Paul's when we march as a community in the San Diego Gay Pride Parade and during Light Up the Cathedral, an event that has become an integral part of Pride Weekend. It is a deeply moving experience to be part of these inspirational celebrations. I'm proud of being a part of a congregation that serves as a beacon of hope, faith, love, and inclusivity. It's exhilarating to see people cheering us and be sometimes surprised as we march by, reminding them that wherever they are on their journey of faith, God loves and takes pride in every single one of us. Thank you.
And I'll take a moment to read the answer to the question from Kimberly Fernandez. She says, a few months ago, my daughter was hospitalized. I was touched by the kindness of our parishioners. We received cards, calls, emails, gifts, visits, and above all, prayers. I am thankful that St. Paul's goes the extra mile to be inclusive, especially to people with mobility issues and the unsheltered. I think now that the candidates have had a chance to answer the questions that we've formally proposed to them, is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question or two? Blair?
First of all, thank you. First of all, I want to reiterate what Penny said about how good of an organization the chapter is. I've served on several vestries that were nowhere near as functional as this one is. We get the business done rather quickly, efficiently, and out of it. And so it's very well written, or very well run. But my question for you stems from a question that Robert Heilman, one of our beloved parishioners, had at the luncheon that we had when Bishop Susan was here a couple of months ago, where he said several years ago St. Paul's made a conscious decision to minister to the LGBTQ community in the area. And we could be proud that we've done a pretty good job of doing that. What is next? What is the next area of focus that we need to go towards to help us grow? And I'm saying this because one of my jobs on the chapter is to lead an effort to write a strategic plan for the church during the next year. And so this is my first question to go into my writings of that, and eventually the committee that'll be put together for that. So again, other than focusing on the LGBT community in the area, what should be our next focus for evangelism, let's say, and focus? Thank you.
I was listening.
One possible area could be working with individuals with disabilities to a little bit greater extent. I know we have the signing often at service, and that's a very good start. But there could be a little bit more outreach possibly to the disabled community. This is a possibility that I was thinking about.
This is a thought.
Yes, sir.
It's one of those things that is probably a tough thing to do. Thank you. But I think it's something that needs to be done. The Christian community is struggling in a lot of places for a lot of reasons. But we've got problems that are even more intrinsic than that. The Christian community is struggling within itself. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of hard feelings. It's present everywhere. It's present here. The cathedral we had people outside the church telling us in no uncertain terms that they didn't agree with everything that we do here. I think we possibly could take some tentative steps very carefully to close some of those gaps. It's a tough thing to do. I'm not sure how to do it. But as a community, I can't think of a better group of people to at least make some first inroads into that here locally. Just a thought.
First, I'd like to thank Blair for such a great question. I've actually been thinking about this a lot as part of the evangelism committee, and how do we reach out and not only grow the church, but also spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I think one community that I believe that we should be reaching out towards is young families. The diocese this year voted at the convention to allow youth to actually have a vote going forward at the conventions, which I think was a great step forward. And I think that St. Paul's, we need to get on that bandwagon and really focus towards how do we get youth back involved at St. Paul's? How do we bring in those young families? How do we bring in people who are going to be here 20, 30 years from now, still continuing to serve the St. Paul's community? And I really feel that that's one thing as a church that we've been lacking a little bit in. I believe that Kate is an amazing family minister that we brought on board, and she's doing amazing things with children, and I'm excited to see where that's going to go. And I really do feel that middle-aged and young family is where we need to put some focus on bringing people into the church.
I think that from my experience, as I said in Ashes to Go, when we have that sign that says Sin esas y oraciones, when people come up to us and they're so surprised, really, to find us there and able to speak their language. I would like to do bilingual programming. We're on the border. There are so many people here who either have Spanish as a first language or as a close second. And I know that one of the things that I've worked with before is in bilingual programming through community colleges, but I would like to see something like that happen here at St. Paul's. However, I just thought of that off the top of my head. So as I go into it, I go, oh wait, that's not possible.
So I think I'm going to steal a little bit from Alan and from Phyllis, if that's okay. The two groups that immediately came to my mind are two groups that I actually belong to, which is the young adult community and also the Hispanic community. I think those are two. There's a lot of possibilities there, especially in this neighborhood and in the city, really, to really reach out to build a strong young adult ministry. And I know that's something that a lot of Episcopal parishes throughout the diocese have really been trying to navigate in how they do it. So there's a lot of synergy already. We've done some things with Episcopal Community Services to get more young people involved with our philanthropy programs. And so I think we can bring some of those techniques and those skill sets that I've developed through that program here to St. Paul's. But I think it's really important that we start with a diverse group of of leaders. So in chapter, making sure that chapter is diverse, I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle to get any of that started, because we want to make sure that whoever we're catering our outreach efforts to, we're actually hearing their voice. And so I think that's kind of where I can fit in really nicely, is bringing in that young adult ministry voice. And also with the Hispanic community. My first language is actually Spanish. You can probably tell from my name. But some of the parishes that I've worked in the past have had really strong Hispanic ministries. And that's been a really great source of pride and joy that Hispanic communities can bring into a parish. So I've seen it work really nicely, having a multilingual parish and approach to things. And so I think as a binational community in San Diego, we have a really unique opportunity to really be leaders, not just in the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego, but really in the Episcopal Church throughout the country here, to really develop those programs that really attract Hispanic ministries. And I think with that, I'll pass it on.
Go ahead.
I'll be brief. When the new bishop came, I was hoping that she would lead the church to address immigration in our community. We are a border town. I'm told there are 300,000 undocumented people in San Diego. I'd like to see our church in some way try to affirm the dignity of the least of these among us. But I'd like to see more of it. Robert, have a question?
I thank you, Robert. Do you have a question?
Some of you may recall that not long ago we had a Spanish-speaking service here. I don't know what happened to it. It ran out of steam, or died, or COVID took over. Something happened. Was it COVID? Do you see that reviving in any way? And if you do see it reviving, how do you see it reviving? Do we have the money for it? Do we have somebody who can lead it? I don't know if any of our clergy are bilingual. Yes? Okay. So that would be, I think, a good way to realize your hopes and dreams for some kind of bilingual service here. How do you see it happening?
I'll add just to answer one of Robert's comments that yes, Penny speaks Spanish. That was a specific commitment on her part when she came here that she would learn to speak Spanish, and she continues her course of classes. The downside of the discontinuing the Latino services, even before COVID, the numbers of attendees and participants were declining, and then COVID hit, and it was hard to get them regathered to continue the Hispanic services on Sunday. We talk about that in chapter every once in a while, whether we can reactivate, and I'm very optimistic that so many of our chapter candidates are standing for continuing, that we don't let that go. I don't think we should. And I'd be delighted to see some new chapter members stand behind some initiatives to get that reactivated. Anybody on the chat and panel want to address it? Perhaps maybe Angel?
Yeah, I'll just say, great question, Robert, always with the great questions. I think it's about starting small and about having native speakers actually integrate into the services. And so I know it's difficult when you don't have native speakers who know the culture and who know the phrasing and that kind of stuff to really, for people to really feel part of the community if they come from Spanish-speaking communities. So I think, yeah, part of it is not starting, maybe we don't have the resources to do, a whole service in Spanish. But I think we can start small and really start to build that steam, and maybe in a couple of years be able to work our way up to having a whole service in Spanish. But I think just starting where you are is the best approach to this.
Anyone else want to address it?
I'd like to listen to all your answers, but I'm going to be a king here very shortly.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock now, and we're supposed to be ending about now, but I think we can go another 5-10 minutes and still all make the 10:30 service.
Maybe just one thought about this. We have tried this before, and I believe we should try again. It takes a commitment, though. We do have the money. That money may need to be taken from other things, so this is something that we need to discern. One thing that helps a lot, and at points in time where we have made progress in this direction, it's been because we've had a clergyman that was dedicated to the Spanish-speaking people in our midst. That's what they did. They were Spanish speakers, and they pursued that community as a congregation, as part of a bigger congregation, but also as a sub-congregation with their own traditions and language. So I think this requires commitment, a sustained commitment. We've started several times for various reasons. We haven't been able to continue. If we do it again, we need to commit to it. My only thought.
Thanks, Bob. Any other significant question that you might want to pose? And if not, I would like to ask the audience to please give a hand to our candidates. And their answers, and we're very appreciative of their efforts in wanting to stand for chapter, and we wish you all the best of luck in the election. As Penny had mentioned, we also have candidates for the Diocesan Convention. There are 6 candidates: Lisa Churchill, Stacy Kleiman, Diane Lopez, Tom Merrick, Alan Muchler, and myself. And the profiles are on the table on the back if you wish to take one on the way out. We will be voting for them also at our annual meeting. Next Sunday, the 14th, the forum will be on the 2024 budget. So the Finance Committee, thank you, Betsy, I think she just left, will be presenting that to the congregation during the forum. Also, as a reminder, at the annual meeting on January 28th, there will be lunch in the Great Hall. And we will be electing our chapter candidates and the Diocesan Convention delegates. It's only being done, as Penny said, in person this year, not mail-in ballots. At that luncheon, the ballots will be counted, and the candidates and the elected candidates will be announced. Thank you very much for coming this morning. Appreciate your time and your interest, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a good day. Blessings to you.